probably never be matched by some of the new talent initiative stars in WWE. The thing about WWE now, everything is handed to you so fast, and you become a fast rising star so quickly. It's almost like WWE are creating stars overnight and handing them things that took some wrestlers 19 or 20 years to accomplish. I mean, somebody like Chris Benoit, of course, took him 18 years to become the World Heavyweight Champion just once. At WrestleMania 20, finally achieving that odyssey in an incredible match with Shawn Michaels and Triple H. Why is it Shawn Michaels is always put on a higher pedestal than Bret the Hitman Hart? Shawn Michaels definitely has had Bret Hart's number over the last number of years, but I mentioned variables that could have contributed to how Bret Hart has acted towards WWE, and some of those variables, of course, the Montreal Screwjob from 1997, something that's consistently brought up to Bret Hart in interviews on the internet and for written columns in different magazines for professional wrestling. It's always brought up to Bret Hart. I think that if we were to overlook these events that have happened in Bret Hart's career, Bret Hart would be looked at as a more prestigious athlete than he is. Of course, if you were to compile a list of the top 5 Canadian wrestlers, you definitely have to place Bret Hart as the number 1 all-time great of Canadian wrestlers, and then in the number 2 spot, you probably have to place Edge. Probably Owen Hart will be number 3 or number 4, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho. Some of the wrestlers you could probably include on that top 5 list. If you have your own suggestions for that top 5 list, leave them for us here for our video blog in our comments on our Facebook page. Facebook.com/HEW Entertainment is the new URL for our Facebook page. You can follow us on Twitter at HEW Entertainment Jonathan Clarke 1, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. YouTube.com Jonathan Clarke 22 is how you do it, and let your voice be heard. You know, it's kind of weird, you know, how WWE are always acting towards Bret Hart. Refusing to induct Owen Hart into the Hall of Fame is Vince McMahon and the McMahon family's latest sin towards the WWE, but it's of course because of a lawsuit going on between the family of Owen Hart and the WWE. Do you think that WWE keep releasing these DVD and Blu-ray projects just to kind of warm up to the Hart family? I mean, just recently they released the Hart Family Legacy, referring to the Hart family in the promo for the DVD and Blu-ray as a family of royalty. Not too long, of course, the Greatest Rivalries DVD and Blu-ray drops. We talked about that here for a video archive on our YouTube channel, youtube.com Jonathan Clarke 22, and I spoke very highly of the DVD, of course, because it had a couple of interviews with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart sitting side by side, something very uncharacteristic of the two of them. You know, do you think that WWE are really trying to warm up to the Hart family and really let bygones be bygones? Is this the WWE's way of showing some kind of respect? Something they probably should have shown to the Hart family 10 years ago. They always keep referring to legendary matches that the Harts have contributed to the video vault of professional wrestling. So it's not like they're treating the Hart family like they're treating Chris Benoit, completely blackballing him from the world of professional wrestling, refusing to look at Chris Benoit's wrestling contributions to the wrestling industry, rather than you know, always referring to him as the guy who committed the double murder-suicide back in 2007, consistently talked about on TMZ and PerezHilton.com. It's nice that WWE still keep treating Bret Hart that way, and in a different light than they're treating the Chris Benoit situation. If the roles were reversed, they'd probably be treating Bret Hart the same way they were treating Chris Benoit. And if you actually look at the Canadian wrestling track record, Canadian wrestlers always seem to win. You know, Canadian wrestlers always seem to get the better of the American wrestlers and wrestlers of different nationalities. During the United States versus Canadian War in 1997 between the Hart family and the American wrestlers definitely outnumbered the Canadian wrestlers in that faction warfare. Of course, the name of that Survivor Series in 97 was called Gang Wars. And, you know, it always seemed that the Canadian wrestlers definitely had a certain advantage, and a particular advantage, a very noticeable one, over American wrestlers. I mean, I remember a number of different occasions where the Canadian wrestlers would outperform the American wrestlers and always come out on top. And it's because Canada is known for a couple of things when it comes to professional wrestling, not just people who were screwed over, but they're known for one incredible thing, and that's producing phenomenal wrestlers. Canada is known for tremendous wrestling talent. Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, Bret Hart, Edge, holding over 31 championships in his illustrious career. Chris Jericho's done the same. A total of 60 championships. If you were to combine the careers of Bret Hart, Jericho, and Edge, you'd have close to 60 or 65 championships that they've garnered in their prestigious careers, and that's just the careers of 3 wrestlers. So, you know, Canada's known for a lot of things, and they're known for wrestling matches of pure art, going back as far as WCW Bret Hart and Chris Benoit and the Owen Hart tribute match from an edition of WCW Nitro, the match between Owen Hart and Bret Hart at WrestleMania 10, the Iron Man match between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, the match at Gang Wars for that year's Survivor Series, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and Yokozuna from WrestleMania 10, the work between Lex Luger and Bret Hart for the 1994 Royal Rumble. So many incredible moments have been provided to us from Canadian wrestlers and Bret Hart. So it's not like Canadian wrestlers haven't contributed anything to the wrestling business. I'm just trying to figure out why WWE keep treating Canadian wrestlers as terrible as they do. There's no call for bringing Bret Hart back and treating him the way that they did. Now, I will admit to you, Bret Hart can be unprofessional at times, during phone conversations or during interviews, because he doesn't want to step outside of context when it comes to an interview and what he's asked in an open forum. He doesn't particularly like to be asked about the Montreal Screwjob, and as I mentioned here, if we didn't keep bringing it up to Bret Hart or writing about it for written columns, it wouldn't continue to follow Bret Hart everywhere he goes. I mean, he's trying to do things outside of the wrestling business and occasionally make a return to benefit different charities and stuff, and that's what the initiative of this tour is, to benefit a couple of charities, and you've got a couple of tour dates set up. For additional information, you can head to BretHart.com. So I hope that Bret Hart continues to benefit from this and receive even more positive publicity. And the stuff that Bret Hart is receiving and the response he's getting from all of this is definitely positive. It's more positive than the things he was being said about him back in 1996, 1997. It seems like Bret Hart, after losing a major match or not getting his way, would go away for 6 months, come back better than he ever was, hold the title, leave again. It was kind of a pattern that developed in the 90s, and because of that, Bret Hart was receiving nothing but negative publicity. And, it's terrible, that Bret Hart was treated that way. But now, 12 or 13 years in the future, fast forwarding a bit, we get all those throwback moments behind us, everything from the Montreal Screwjob to losing at WrestleMania 12 to having Shawn Michaels outperform him in big match situations. Now he's finally receiving positive publicity. The only thing is, it's on the independent circuit. Bret Hart didn't have the majority of his success on the independent circuit. He had his majority of success from a lot of controversy. But with success, definitely controversy associates itself and affiliates itself quite sufficiently, and we've seen that follow Bret Hart's career over the last 12 or 13 years. I think that controversy is something that's associated itself with Bret Hart more often than we would probably like to admit to, and probably Bret Hart himself. But Bret Hart definitely is a tremendous family man who, of course, went home after having his final match in WCW against Goldberg. An incredible match. You can find that on YouTube. I'll probably tweet it on our Twitter page at HEW Entertainment, Jonathan Clarke 1, for you to take a look at, ending with a bicycle kick to the skull of Bret Hart. Incredible finish to a very incredible match. But I really would have liked for Bret Hart to kind of have the same send-off that Shawn Michaels got 2.5 years ago when he competed in his final match against Mark Calloway at WrestleMania 26. I really think that Bret Hart deserved some kind of a similar send-off. It was nice seeing Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart patch things up back in 2010. Shawn Michaels was the first one to come out and interrupt Bret Hart during his return promo, the first in-ring promo he had done for WWE, with the exception of his 2006 Hall of Fame induction speech, where he accepted his induction for the first time, something we never thought we would see. It was really interesting seeing the interaction between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. For a minute there, I thought Shawn Michaels was going to turn coat and super kick Bret Hart, but because of his concussion, that prevented Shawn Michaels from having any connection with the sweet chin music on Bret Hart. It was nice seeing that, but we didn't need to go from that to having Vince McMahon come out challenging him to a match at WrestleMania and having weeks and weeks of hype and publicity for something that amounted to nothing. It was just a match leading into the main event, which was an incredible match between Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. Another example of how Michaels has outperformed Bret Hart in big match situations. Not only has Shawn Michaels outperformed Bret Hart in big match situations, but he's outperformed Bret Hart in big match situations where they didn't even compete against one another. WrestleMania 10, becoming the first man in wrestling history to jump off of a ladder in New York City. The same night Bret Hart won the WWE title from Yokozuna in a 15-minute match, refereed by Hall of Famer Roddy Piper. We've seen Shawn Michaels outperform Bret Hart many, many times, and I think that it was a trend that continued for years, and that's what's really haunted Bret Hart. And I think that, that's a lot of the variables, and that's a lot of the reasons why Bret Hart continues to kind of shy away from the WWE. Now, Vince McMahon's been referred to as a soulless son of a bitch, and probably there are a lot of people who can testify to that, and you know, I really think that there's a lot of variables that we'll probably never even know about as to why Bret Hart continues to treat WWE the way that he does. I don't think we're going to see Bret Hart come back to the WWE full-time as a general manager or a manager of somebody. Obviously, a lot of people benefited from Bret Hart coming back to the WWE. Tyson Kidd and his tag team partner definitely benefited from Bret Hart coming back. They got a tag team title run out of it anyway. The Hart Dynasty, Natalya benefited from it. She got a Divas Championship run out of it. A number of people benefited from it. Vince McMahon benefited from it because he generated a lot of cash flow from it in pay-per-view buys. WrestleMania 26 that year got over 1 million buys. But even without Bret Hart on the show for WrestleMania, the first WrestleMania he'd been involved with since WrestleMania 13, I think. So I really think that, they would have benefited in terms of pay-per-view buys and generated enough attention even without Bret Hart. But a lot of people did benefit from Bret Hart's contributions to WrestleMania in 2010. So definitely I think that Bret Hart has made a decision to head back to the independents because he realizes there at least he's going to need a lot of positive publicity. You can find the YouTube video that the news programs have been profiling for the reports of the Canadian tour that Bret Hart is on and involved with. A number of independent wrestlers are going to be coming to towns near you. You can head to BretHart.com for tour dates and additional information on what Bret Hart's going to be up to and information on the charity that he's going to be benefiting from these shows. The Jack Brown Arena is one of the venues that have been announced, pretty close to actually where I am from, actually. I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to attend that independent show or not, but I would like to. I've seen Bret Hart wrestle before many times. I saw Bret Hart wrestle back in 1997 in a tag team match. It was himself and his his brother Owen Hart. They took on Mick Foley and Stone Cold Steve Austin in an incredible tag team match that was about 25 minutes in length, ending with Bret Hart connecting with a chair shot to Steve Austin to win the tag team match. That was back when chair shots were illegal in the WWE, and they were legal only if the ref didn't see them, and that's how the Hart family won that match. It was an incredible opportunity of mine seeing the Hart brothers team up for one of the final times before Owen Hart died.